The alchemy of adversity, how barriers become bridges. When we think about success in business, we often imagine a clear path forward, resources at our disposal, doors that open easily, networks that welcome us with open arms. But what if I told you that some of the most innovative, resilient, and community transforming businesses emerge precisely because that path was blocked? Because those resources were scarce, because those doors remained firmly shut. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Raven Williams, whose insights have fundamentally challenged how I understand entrepreneurship, particularly within Black communities. Raven isn't just a business strategist, she's a visionary who has devoted her life to transforming how we perceive obstacles in the entrepreneurial journey. Her groundbreaking work has empowered thousands of underrepresented founders to reimagine constraints as catalysts for innovation. What Raven shared wasn't just compelling, it was revolutionary. It inverts everything we think we know about disadvantage and advantage in the business world. Here's the counterintuitive truth that emerged from our conversation. The very barriers that Black entrepreneurs face, limited access to capital, smaller starting sizes, systemic skepticism from financial institutions can actually fuel some of the most creative and resilient business models in our communities. Let that sink in for a moment. The obstacles aren't just challenges to overcome. They're catalysts for innovation. This isn't about romanticizing struggle. It's about recognizing the alchemy that happens when human ingenuity meets constraint. When traditional paths are blocked, new ones emerge, often more sustainable, more community centered, more revolutionary than what came before. Raven illuminated three profound insights that deserve our full attention. First, resourcefulness isn't just a nice quality to have, it's a superpower. When traditional funding sources are limited or inaccessible, Black entrepreneurs develop unique approaches to resource management and networking. They become masters at doing more with less, at finding value where others see nothing, at creating abundance from scarcity. She told me, when you can't walk through the front door, you don't just give up. You find windows, create secret passages, or build an entirely new structure with its own entrance. This resourcefulness isn't born from choice, it's forged in necessity. And that necessity creates innovations that would never emerge in environments of abundance. Second, community isn't optional, it's essential. In ecosystems where individual resources may be limited, collective resources become transformative. Networks within Black professional communities aren't just about exchanging business cards, they're lifelines, innovation hubs, and force multipliers. Third, mindset matters enormously. Many Black founders expect rejection from financial institutions, even those with excellent credit histories. But those who shift this mindset by seeking alternative funding sources or collective investment models often discover entirely new pathways to growth and sustainability. These aren't just theoretical observations. They're grounded in real stories, real data, real lives. Consider MillenniumCon 2025, an annual conference in Washington, D.C., specifically designed to empower Black professionals and entrepreneurs. Many attendees report feeling isolated in their industries, with limited access to mentors or investors who understand their unique journeys. That's a barrier, certainly. But look at what emerged from that barrier: intentional spaces for collaboration like Scholar Pitch, mentorship programs connecting students with industry leaders, and direct exposure through business expos. Dozens of HBCU students received sponsorships. Several startups secured funding. Participants expanded their networks exponentially. The story behind MelaninCon is itself a testament to turning barriers into bridges, organized by Donovan Woodbury, a leader passionate about economic empowerment. The conference began when Donovan found himself the only Black professional at a major industry event. Rather than accepting this isolation as inevitable, he created the very space he wished existed. What started as a small gathering has blossomed into a movement that has launched Scholar Pitch with an $8,000 prize fund and provides over 50 student sponsorships annually. More importantly, it set a precedent for culturally relevant professional conferences nationwide and fostered tangible career advancement within the community. One attendee told me with tears in her eyes, "Before MelaninCon, I thought I was alone in my struggles. Now I have a family of fellow entrepreneurs who understand my journey and lift me up when traditional systems push me down." This is what happens when people face barriers together rather than alone, when they transform isolation into connection, when they build the very bridges they couldn't find. But perhaps you're thinking, that's one example. What about the hard data? Let's look at a longitudinal study using the Kaufman Firm survey, which examined disparities between Black owned startups versus white owned ones over 8 years. The challenges were stark and persistent: difficulty raising external capital, smaller initial size, perceived bias from banks leading many qualified entrepreneurs not even to apply for loans despite solid credit histories. These are real documented barriers with real consequences. But here's where it gets interesting. Some founders pivoted toward bootstrapping operations or leveraging informal lending circles and community funds instead of traditional bank loans. And while their overall scale often remained smaller due to systemic barriers, firms that embraced alternative financing frequently built stronger local customer bases out of necessity and reported higher satisfaction with their autonomy over time. The research highlights generational wealth gaps, yes, but it also spotlights innovative adaptation strategies developed within marginalized communities. These businesses demonstrated remarkable resilience, achieving survival rates comparable with better funded peers when supported by strong local ecosystems. This isn't just surviving, it's reimagining what success looks like. Or consider Ray Nicole, founder of Shop Paris Parker, a lifestyle brand blending fashion forward pet accessories with a vision rooted in authenticity and bold self expression. Breaking into an industry dominated by larger brands while maintaining cultural relevance presented significant challenges. Her solution: leveraging social media storytelling around her identity as a proud pet mom and entrepreneur, creating products reflecting both style and function unique to her audience. The outcome wasn't just a business, it was an engaged online community celebrating originality and joy alongside commerce. Ray's journey began when traditional retailers rejected her designs for being too bold and not marketable enough. Instead of diluting her vision to fit existing spaces, she created her own platform where boldness wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. Her personal passion grew when she recognized unmet needs among fellow pet lovers seeking representation and connection. She established brand loyalty through collaborations and events centered on culture and creativity. Most importantly, she inspired other minority founders, proving that niche businesses can thrive when grounded in genuine purpose. When they told me my designs were too much, Ray shared, I realized the problem wasn't my vision, it was the narrowness of theirs. So I built a space where too much became exactly right for a community that had been overlooked. This is the pattern that Raven Williams helped me see so clearly. Constraint breeds creativity. Exclusion catalyzes community. Barriers become bridges. But there's something deeper here that we need to acknowledge. These stories aren't just about individual triumph over adversity, they're about systemic transformation through collective action. When Black entrepreneurs create alternative funding mechanisms because traditional ones exclude them, they're not just solving their immediate problem, they're building new financial infrastructures that may ultimately serve everyone better. When they create conferences like Melanin Con, because traditional networking spaces don't welcome them fully, they're not just creating a parallel event, they're modeling more intentional, supportive professional development that the entire business world could learn from. This is innovation born of necessity. And it matters not just for those directly involved, but for all of us seeking more sustainable, equitable economic models. Now, I want to be absolutely clear about something. Recognizing the creativity that emerges from constraint does not in any way justify the constraints themselves. The systemic barriers facing Black entrepreneurs are unjust, unnecessary, and economically wasteful for society as a whole. They should be dismantled, but while that dismantling work continues, there's profound wisdom in recognizing and celebrating the alchemical transformation that happens when human ingenuity meets systemic challenge. There's something we can all learn from entrepreneurs who have turned no into another way. As Raven Williams emphasized in our conversation, this perspective shift changes everything. It transforms how we see ourselves, how we approach problems, how we build communities, and ultimately how we create change. The most powerful innovations often emerge not from abundance, but from absence, not from ease, but from difficulty, not from privilege, but from its lack. This isn't just true for Black entrepreneurs, though their experiences illuminate it with particular clarity. It's a human truth. We are at our most creative when challenged. We build our strongest connections when we need each other most. We discover our deepest resources when external ones are scarce. The barriers are real. The statistics are sobering. The playing field is far from level, but the human capacity for transformation, for turning obstacles into opportunities, for creating community where there was isolation, for building bridges where there were walls, that capacity is boundless. So I challenge you today, look at the barriers in your life, personal or professional, and ask yourself what alchemy might be possible there. What innovation is waiting to be born from that constraint? What community could form around that shared challenge? More importantly, how can you support those who face systemic barriers that you don't? How can you invest in the brilliance that emerges from adversity rather than dismissing it as small scale or niche? The next revolution in business, in community building, in human connection, it's not coming from those with every advantage. It's emerging right now in the spaces between obstacles, in the cracks of broken systems, in the determined hands of those who refuse to be defined by what they lack. Will you recognize it when you see it? Will you support it? Will you learn from it? Because in the end, we all face barriers. And in the alchemy of adversity, those barriers don't just break down, they transform into the very bridges that carry humanity forward. Thank you.